Here we go, Alexander the Great. Ad ultimum tamen. Tamen's nevertheless, however, it's continuing on from before. Ad ultimum, towards the end or at the end, nevertheless, in stirpem regiam, in with the accusative, inclinavere. This is anything that goes vre, is a shortened form of usually a third person plural. They were inclined towards the royal stirp, the royal bloodline, offspring. Studious, this is the plural form, with zeal, or their desires lean towards the royal stirp. And just to show that there aren't any VRE words ending with VRE in Latin, there's only 4 of them. So you always know that it's a shortened form of a perfect. Persevere, severe, and vere are the other ones. Okay. Cesserat ex contione arhiadius. So this guy, he's receded, cesserated from the assembly, ex contione. Principium, genitive plural, auctoritate, ablative, conteritus. So here's the apposition. Arhidius was conterrified, he was very terrified by the authority of the principum of the leading man. And he left the assembly. Abiunte illo. This is an ablative form of the present participle. So, illo, that's him, abiunting, going away. So, with him going away, contiquorat magus quem ilangurat militaris favor. So, the favour of the genitive, favour of the soldiery, it contiquorated, it grew silent more than ilanguit, which means wasted away or became feeble. And ilanguit can be our daily dictionary day. I've updated this all words as well. So linguesco and relinguesco here. I haven't got elinguisco, but it's of the family. Become faint, weak, languid, or sick. Okay, back to the story. Itaque revocatus. And so accordingly, revocatus, called back, past participle, the vestrem fratris. This is the vest of his brother, the clothing of his brother, which we saw before was a robe. Eam ipsam, this itself, quae, which in cella posita fuerit, which had been placed, posited on the throne. Induita means he put it on. So he put on this robe for his brother. Et maliga, maliga is in the nominative, and maliga, thores sumpto, ablative absolute, having taken up his thores, comes from thorax, can also mean a statue. Here it's a breastplate, or they call it a cuirass or something, I think. He capited his armour, so he took up his arms. Novi regus satels. Satels is the singular for satellites. He was now a bodyguard, a satellite, or an attendant. Novi regus of the new king. Sequitur the phalanx. The phalanx followed. Hastis clipios quatians. Quatians, present participle looking thing. So the hastis, so the spears, were shaking or banging on the clipios with the shields. Explutura, it's a future say, so they would fill themselves up, basically, is what it says, with the say, fill themselves up. Sanguine, with the blood. Genitive, illorum, of those. Qui, who. Ad fecta varianted, nihil ad ipsos pertinens. So these who had affections towards the crown, or the kingdom, these were wanted, who would want the crown for themselves, but nihil pertinens ad ipsos. But they had no claim to it, nothing pertinent to it, to this, to themselves. In eodem domo, in with the ablative, so in the same house, there's the qui and clitic, and family, imperia vires remensura esse gordament. So they were rejoicing that the vires, not to be confused with men, this is power of the empire, here's the future, remensurus esse. It would remain in the same house and family. Hereditarium imperium stirpem regium vindicaturum, another future. So the inheritance of the empire would be vindicating, protecting, basically, the stirpem regium, the royal stock. Ad suitos means they're accustomed, accusative plural, esse, the nomen itself, colore venariqui. So they're accustomed to praise, colore, the nomen itself, the name itself, and to venerate it. This accustoms taking the infinitives here. Neither could quem, neither could anyone, capere id, take this, nisi, unless genitum ut regnerit, unless they were born to rule. Igitor perdica territus, therefore Perdiccas, who was terrified, the conclave, it's a ablative look, in quo, so the conclave is the type of room, I think it's got to do with the roof of it, that's why it's called that, in which the corpus of Alexander Jacobat was lying. He ubeted, he ordered it, taking the infinitive, to be obserated, to be bolted closed. So the room he ordered to be bolted shut. DC, which is 500 and 100, so 600, cum ipso, with himself, erant they were, spectate virtutis, of watched or of tested valour. Ptolemaeus, quoque also, adjuncturated se, joined himself, ei to him, puorum qui regia cohors, and the royal cohort of puorums, of boys. These are like slave boys, I imagine. Ceterum, but, hor difficulty, not difficultly, a tot militibus armatorum claustra perfractusun. By so many milibus is thousands, armatorum is of armed men, the claustra, this is the thing that's closed, the door was perfracted, busted, this barricade was broken. And at Rex and the king, this is Hideous, or whatever his name was, since it's 20 years since I studied this, quoque also, he in ruperated, he burst in, stipatus satellitium turbo. So turbo is a crowd of satellites. Stipatus means they were paid. I haven't finished that sentence. Quorum princess Maliga, of whom the leader was Maliga. Iratus qui in the A manuscript, or itaque, and so in the lobe. So Perdica, Iratus, angry, or in so Perdiccas, those, hos, who, qui, the corpus of Alexander, the body or cadaver of Alexander, Velant wanted to Velo takes the infinitive, to safeguard or to watch over, he vocated them. This isn't calling him to himself, so it's not say like that. They actually meant a separation when you see this in this word. So Perdiccas called those aside who wanted to make sure the body of Alexander was safe, and he called them aside. Said qui in rupert, but those who in rupert bursted in, e minus, the adverb for long range, as opposed to com minus, which is at close range. Tella in ipsum jacubat. So they were throwing tellers, which are spears or javelins, in ipsum, in with the accusative towards him, or into him. So those who burst in were throwing from a distance weapons at himself. Lots of nice short sentences. Multis qui vulneratus, with many being wounded in the ablative, tandem at last, seniors, these are the older fellas, Demptus Gallius, having taken off their helmets, with their helmets taken off, quo facilius is comparative, that quo would normally be an ut, so they took off their helmets so that they could more easily, possent, be able, taking the infinitive, noski to be known, precara eos, as infinitive, they were praying or entreating to those, qui who, with Perdica erant, who were with Perdiccas, coopere is taking this infinitive, so they began to entreat those who were with Perdiccas, ut, that, abstinerant bello, that they were abstained from this war, that they would desist with this fighting, regi qui and pluribus cederent, and that they would cede to the king and to these pluribus, these huge numbers of soldiers. Primus, first, Perdiccas, armour deposited. So first, Perdiccas was first to deposit down his arms, to lay down his arms. Ceterae qui idem facere, and the rest, the ceterae, facere, did, idem, likewise, the same. Maligro, dative ablative, deinde, then, suadente. So Maligro was then persuading, in this participle, nay, so that not, a corpore Alexandri discend, so that they would not discenderate, they would not leave the body of Alexander. Insidious locum quere rati, so rati is plural. They were thinking that he was querying, he was looking for a locum, a place for this plotting of ambushing of was planning something bad. Diverse regia parte, from a different part regia of this palace or royal quarters, ad Euphratem, the Greek ending there, and fugem intended. So they intended their flight, they aimed their flight ad Euphrates, to the Euphrates. Equitatus. These are cavalry members, qui, who, ex nobilissimum, the superlative, juvenum, genitive, constabat. So this cavalry which constabated consisted of the most noblest juvenum, of the young man, Perticum and Leonatum. So this is Perticus and Leonatus, frequens sequebat. They followed them. Frequens mean it was a crowded bunch of them or a lot of them. Placibatqui, and it was pleasing or decided, excedere herb, to ex means out of, so to recede or go out of the city, and to tendere in the campus, pitch tents in the plains. Sed perdica ne pedites quidem, so we have ne quidem, but Perticus, ne quidem means not even, pedites secuturos ipsum desperate. He did not despair or become desperate that the pedites, the foot soldiers, secuturus is the future, they would follow ipsum him. So Perticus was not despairing or desperate that the foot soldiers wouldn't follow him. Looks like that's repeated. So, yeah, that is repeated. I'll just delete that back there. Okay, that looks sane. Itaque ne obdecendo the equites, and so that the equites is the horsemen cavalry. Would ne means negative. They would not be abducendo, be led away. Rupisi a cetero exercito videre. Okay, so that wouldn't seem viderito seem. So it wouldn't seem that the cavalry would be led away. Brobisse from cetero exercito. So this A is taking the ablative. So it seemed to be snatched away, Brobisse, from the rest of the army. In urbe subsisted, so he stayed there. So that whole little bit was that I deleted, which was repeated. But Perticus, so not even it was despairing that the foot soldiers would follow him, and so that the horsemen wouldn't seem to be led away, abducendo, from the rest of the army, stayed in the city or remained there. So Book 10, Chapter 8, at Maliga, but Maliga, regem monere non distituit. He did not cease, taking the infinitive, to advise or warn the regem, the king, jus imperia, by the it would be right of the empire or some sort of law of the empire. Perdice morte sanciendum esse. So sanciendum must be sanctioned, so his right of the empire must be sanctioned morte with the death, genitive of Perticus. Ni occupita impotens animus. Impotens can mean impotent, but it also means wild, uncontrollably. So unless he's impotens animus, unless he's uncontrolled mind, be occupitud, which comes from ob capio, I think. So it'd be blocked, checked, or can even mean anticipated. Res novaturum, there would be new matter, which is what they use in Latin for a revolution or a revolt. Meminisse is to remember, him, quid de reg, merited. So he should remember what he merited concerning the king, or what he deserved concerning the king. Neminum is no one in the accusative. Autems, however or moreover. However, no one, ei satis fidem esse quem metuet. No one was satisfactorily fidem, loyal, ei to him, quem metuet, whom he feared. Rex patiebator magus, so the king endured this or suffered this more, quem ad sentiebator, then he assented to it or agreed with it. Itaque, and so accordingly, maliga, silentium pro imperium habit. You have this silence, or he considered this silence pro imperio as an order, pro in that sense as if it was an order. Misitque, and he sent nomine regis, in the name of the king, qui, those who perdicam accursorent, who would summon accursorent Perticus. And again, habit, it's only used of consider it when it comes to humans, so I don't know if ghosts and gods and other things can consider, but according to the grammar books, only humans can do that. We're almost done. Is there mandatum ut occiderant, si venere dubiteret. So, is there mandatum? In this same mandate, there was that occiderant, he should be killed. See if He gibberturated, he hesitated, venire to come.